Okay, I'm
Okay.
going to let
Do you
you
want to intro
introduce
this?
this.
All right.
episode.
shit. Okay. All right. I can do it.
Wait, come on, you're in America, so you got the Thanksgiving.
Well, good day, everyone. It is time for another Thanksgiving. No, wait, shit. Halloween. No, wait, shit. Anyway, some kind of holiday spectacular that happens in the colder months. And today we are talking about the film by the band who some people might not have even heard of, Cradle of Filth. It is Cradle of Fear, produced, I believe. I didn't look it up, but I managed to get clues from the actual film itself. I believe shot in 2000, was at least in 01.
Yep.
Okay, that seems to be okay. That makes sense then. So I had never seen this film. Mark, had you seen it before?
I saw it when it was new, and I'd clearly forgotten most of it. And then we've joked about it enough on here, and I think a lot of those jokes are made the air, that I finally tracked down a copy. I think we were supposed to do this last year when we were originally going to do this episode.
Quite well, yeah. We did. We had the idea for the episode a while ago, and then it was just like, we'll do that one day.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe part of the genesis of it was during it was either our Endgame or Infinity War one, whichever one has Thanos. Thanos is like minions. I called one of them Danny Filth.
Right, is that where it started? Okay.
I don't know if that's necessarily where it started, but we riffed on it after that, and yeah, you informed me that such a thing existed, and we were like, okay, we should probably do that one day, and so we're finally doing it.
Yeah, I tracked down a DVD of it. DVD of it would have been. I wonder if it was a VHS.
It might as well have been a video.
Yeah. And we got you a totally legitimate copy of it as well.
Totally legitimate copy I watched, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to talk about it for everyone's listening pleasure on our spoopy Thanksgiving special.
Woo! That's where the intro music plays.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it was going to be like. It's got the two vocal types that Danny Filth can do, which is and you skip nothing in between.
Or, I mean, more appropriately, it should probably be some really, really shit
drum and bass.
Drum and bass.
I have that as a note. Oh my god. So I mean, we weren't off to a good start when. So it opens on. Tell me when it opens, because I mean, my mind is such a mush from watching it. But
when you put in the DVD, it starts playing the film immediately, and you can't stop it.
Oh, does it really?
I couldn't bring up the menus. Like on the computer, when I made your 100% legitimate copy to send to you,
badly authored DVD.
I could get the menus and stuff up. The machine upstairs, you couldn't do it. If you hit menu, it just reset to the start and started playing it again.
Oh god! So the way I played the file was through my TV, okay. and it was, I just dumped all three files that you gave me into a folder, and just luckily it started. Luckily, to an extent, it started playing the film first. So I was like, okay, I'll watch the film. But then when the film ended, it went straight to the making of, and then it went straight to the trailers. But then it started playing the film again, and I was like, no, please, no.
Yeah, so it starts with a big Film 2000 logo, which I assume must be a company or something, but I don't know. And then it sort of opens on the sort of darkened street with Danny Filth walking all like, I'm super cool,
tough guy. Yeah,
I'm tough guy. And then he gets beaten up by the two guys start following him.
That's it.
He kills the guy first with the shadow hand, which actually isn't too bad.
No, so is that when he like stomps on his head with like, and it's like a Halloween mask covered in jam?
Yeah, that's the end of the sequence. So those two guys start following him, and then they comically beat him up with like bits of rubber pipe, which have the most overall sound effects.
Sound effects. It's like 60s Batman. It's amazing.
Looney Tunes, yeah, whatever sound effects. And then he kills both of them. Some of the like effects aren't too bad, but yeah, the Halloween masks at different points. So I think I have a Halloween mask now. At some point, we'll get to it. But yeah, and then we go into the overlong drum and bass impact font opening credits.
I took a note that said, "Did I design these credits when I was 14?" Because it really does look like something I did in Paint Shop Pro when I was 14.
the impact font was added to Windows in Windows 98. So it was so it was probably a new cool font at that point still. So
it hadn't been on a jillion memes at that point.
No, it's so weird to sit there and just
Gillian memes. I think she's one of the girls in the movie, isn't she?
Gillian memes. Oh dear, that's a new character for the.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
It made such little sense because obviously I didn't really do any reading into what the movie was. I don't know if I even could. I don't know how much info there is out there about it, but I kind of wanted to go in cold as like, okay, I understand the conceit. It's a horror movie made by Cradle of Filth. All right, so
it literally says in the credits though a horror movie by Alex Chandon, who was the director of it, and it's almost to like try and convince people.
Yes, but it's produced, directed, and edited. But that was the confusing thing to me. I was like, okay, so why the hell are we opening with, rave EJ level drum and bass with like, clearly just pieced together loops that he got from a sample CD? Why are we opening with that instead of Cradle of Filth music? And I was like, okay. As the movie went on and like almost no Cradle of Filth music was being played. There's that one scene in the club where they play some. And I was like, was this literally that they could not afford to license the music from their own record label? Is that what it was?
It wouldn't surprise me that it was something they wanted to be involved in and they could be. But yeah, the chances are that the music is owned by someone else.
Because as much of a joke as they kind of are, they've had pretty decent success for a good amount of time. Kind of Kevin Smith level success. They've got an audience who buys
Kevin
their
Smith's
albums.
offended somewhere right now.
Or at least they've. He's pissing his jorts. It's
piss your jorts. No, he's not. Probably thinner than both.
But like, I think they're on like Warner Associated labels and stuff. So it would make sense if they were like, okay, well, we're going to do a movie, and then partway through production, they were like, oh shit, we don't really have budget. We can't use our music without permission of the record label. So
there is a surprising amount of music listed in the end credits. I think there's like 4 of their tracks and a couple from other bands and stuff. But I'd be hard pressed to tell you exactly where they are in the film. There's a few bits where like it gets super whatever, and they sort of like start playing, and then the end credits has a few. But like you say, it's really only the club
scene,
which is clearly just a pub. When you take away all the smoke, if you look at the behind the scenes stuff, it's just a pub.
Yeah, the making of, which really isn't a making of, it's just production footage.
It says it's not. It doesn't say the making of. It's not definitive. It says some making of.
Oh, does it really?
It really does. And then at the end, it says mostly shot by someone.
It does. I saw that, and that was in like red impact font as well.
Yeah, red impact bleeding like crazy.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
But yeah, so it opens with that like scene set to like just the man, as they credit him as,
right?
Young Daniel Filth, just murdering some folks, and then we come out of that into like, so it's a what I would call a portmanteau story. Some people call it an anthology.
Yeah, because there's 4 vague acts that are charitably strung together by these characters of your Danny Filth, your guy in the over art directed padded cell, and your brown tooth cop. He
does have such brown teeth. Wait, if they brown his teeth, I was like, no, they can't. They didn't have any money. I swear the cop is probably the only real actor. The only actor.
I recognize him from something, but I can't think what.
Right,
He played like a creepy dude in something.
Spot on the bill.
Yeah. But he was dreadful. He was not good.
It's all dreadful.
Oh yeah, there's no good acting in this film at all. So we break out of that to the scene, right? The murder scene where she's on the bed.
Oh, yeah, it starts at the end of the segment. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Actually, while we're here, I'm just going to open my first beer.
Okay, what are you drinking? Let's
what I'm drinking, the Pale Countess.
Yay!
which is Cradle of Filth's beer, made with hang on, where's the camera? Made with Electric Bear down in Bath, which, because we've been doing this for so long, is out of date. But I'm going to see how it. Well, talking to things that are
2 years out of date, I believe.
Not that far.
Not quite that far. Okay.
It's from batch 1396, so it's 13, if I told you how out of date it was,
backwards,
tell me not to drink it. I've got one up there that's less out of date. If this one tastes like shit, I'm getting that one. So I've got 2 of these beers.
Okay, let's see what it sounds like. Ooh, that's pretty good. Pretty good sound.
Firing. Oh, it smells nice. That's the Pale Countess. And what are you drinking? Just so we can...
Diet Coke right now.
Hmm.
Have a can of LaCroix in the fridge behind me, which I might grab at some point.
Nice. I have two of these. How strong are these actually? 4.5. Oh, come on, Danny. You can do better than that.
No,
it says on the back.
though.
Do you want to?
Yeah,
Indulge, desire, darken. I didn't even realize there's stuff on the back. The delightful, wicked, pale.
Countess?
No. Ichor? ICHOR.
It's pronounced Ichor, yes.
What is that?
It's like it's goo, basically. I learned this when I played the game Shovel Knight. Which was a kind of so the definition is the fluid that flows like blood in the veins of the gods. And you do pronounce it Ichor. I pronounced it Ichor for a long time, but it's Ichor.
Oh, I did quite well. I mean, I know I like to think of myself as quite an erudite young man, but I think I did quite well to not get that wrong. The delightful, wicked, pale Ichor, the first from poisonous meddlers' cradle of filth, is awash with forbidden fruits, possessing the opulent aroma of tropical hurricanes, reclining midst the what? Hang on, this sentence doesn't make any sense. Also, there's no commas in it. Possessing the opulent aroma of tropical hurricanes, reclining midst the bloody hubbub of grapefruit and mango, it is best served chilled like the dark countess's soul. Pale Countess, people. I don't think they even make it anymore.
If there's one thing I think of when I think of Cradle of Filth, it's the tropical hurricanes.
Yeah. Collaboration brew between Electric Bear and Cradle of Filth, Cruelty and the Beast, the classic.
Oh, there's a Cruelty and the Beast poster in the movie.
Oh, the classic album. Yeah, the classic album remixed, remastered, and remistressed. Open Spotify. That explains why there's a Spotify gimmick on the back of it.
Oh, you can scan. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of their music, well, some of the stuff that I've heard, they sometimes have like an operatic female vocalist. So I wonder if remaidened, I wonder if they got a different singer on there.
Not remaidened, remistressed.
Remistressed, sorry. Yeah, I mean, as we'll find out as the film goes on, they're not afraid of. Well, I've got a few notes. Let's just say. Speaking of which, my next note for that scene is the cop squeezing the corpse's boob.
Yeah, which could have gone somewhere more interesting ultimately, because he basically just says, like, I've got to do it later on.
Right,
and it kind of actually leads into a kind of semi-tragic character beat.
It does.
He just seems to... in the film, does he ever touch her throat? Because in the making of, you see him touch her throat and then go for the boob grab. And I swear in the film he just grabs a boob.
I think he just grabs her boob because the two Halloween costume cops behind him, the forensic guys, are just like
it's just part of his process. And the other guy's like,
yeah, it's kind of weird. But it's just what he does. He's just a tragic genius, you know.
Yeah, because I wonder whether he was just going to be some like piece of shit cop kind of thing, and that was going to be part of it. But
yeah, no, tortured brown tooth cop is how I referred to him throughout my notes. But this is the button essentially, and then we flash back to the start of this story, which is, and it's the first of the 4 main kind of character stories outside of Brown Tooth Cop and Danny Filth and those characters who are they bridged. Yeah. And this is the goth club woman segment.
Emily Booth, star of late night Channel 4 show Bits.
I thought I recognized her from something. Thank you. I didn't look her up, and I was wondering. I was like, "Who are you? Where are you from?" I feel like I had a crush on you at one point.
Yeah, everyone's 1999 crush, Emily Booth.
Us humans have always looked deep within the dank cesspools of our minds to figure out what the frick is going to happen to us in the future. For years, the computer games industry has dropped hints and implied what the future holds, like a trail of breadcrumbs in a big bushy forest. Once upon a time, we believed that by 2001, we'd be living with a little green men and their anal probes in their space stations on planet Zot.
I did it. So the way that scene in the club is like, you can tell they wanted it to feel pretty badass. With
they brought all their mates along in all their best gear.
Yeah, exactly. Danny Filth standing there, like just kind of not really moving, which is the best thing he can do in these, because when he starts moving, you're like, oh, you're 2'3", shit.
Oh, in the making of, did you see? When he was beating up the guy who the bowl guy?
Yes, yeah.
He in the making of, he stood on like some pallets.
Is he really? Oh, I missed that. That's hilarious. And they kind of like gaze at one another across the room. There's a lot of the audio in this is like mumblecore level. It sounded like onboard mics, but I don't think it was.
No, there's a boom. There's so many boom mics in shot at different points. You can tell it's not
right. But specifically in that scene where it's her and her friend talking in the toilets.
That's probably the worst of the lot. Yeah, because
Dreadful.
It's bouncing around in that little space. Also, most of that whole segment is kind of montagey.
Yeah,
like there's not much dialogue throughout all of it. That's really the only dialogue scene. So I think maybe.
No, it's like there's that dialogue. There's the dialogue in the scene before, and then there's that talk in the bathroom,
one in the flat,
and then even up until the flat, I suppose there's a little bit of talk right before they're about to fuck in the Red Wall flat, and
it's not really intelligible, and I don't think it's meant to be, though, is it?
No. But yeah, a more major dialogue scene comes afterwards, after she's had the night with Danny Filth, and she's starting to see Halloween monsters on the street. And wasn't that all shot like super guerrilla style? Like no one signed a release.
Definitely.
It was like packed London streets. Yeah.
On Oxford Street, and people are staring at them. And she's all like.
And you've got like the 2 or 3 people in the crowd who are involved in the production, and I love the contrast. Like they clearly had someone doing prosthetics, and it's a shame that the production values aren't better, because you can see effort went into those prosthetics. They don't look great, but effort clearly went into them.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like even the Halloween mask head, and when there's stuff like the fake torso they have,
that was
pretty nicely done.
Right, I've got a note actually about that, because I thought when it was just like the spider legs or the crab leg type things, when they were coming out, I thought that looked pretty good. It wasn't until the full baby head spider thing came out and started rolling around on string that it looked like shit.
Yeah.
One thing about like that scene in the club though is, and when we did get some Cradle of Filth score, I was like, one positive note that I took was, well, at least the metal score in this doesn't sound like some granddad did it who just in a studio with a Metal Zone pedal, because that's it. Jay says this from RLM. He's like, metal score always sounds lame, and at least it sounds like Cradle of Filth, so very polarizing style. But at least it didn't sound like some granddad just kind of knocked off some metal and thought, oh yeah, okay, I can do this.
Whereas the drum and bass did.
The drum and bass absolutely did sound like that. Sound like, and but so there was a production moment in when they get back to her apartment after they leave the club together, and there's just a green light shining on a wall, and it's just hot spotting all over the place, and it just looked absolutely terrible, just dreadful. And then sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just about to say the flats all have to just be friends' flats, right?
Oh yeah.
People willing to spread blood everywhere.
Oh! Did you notice in the making of that there was a moment where a woman walks in who's a slightly older woman, and she sees the blood all over, and and he goes like, "Mom," so I'm like, "Oh shit!" They shot into the mom's place and didn't tell her that they were going to throw blood all over the walls, because she was genuinely shocked.
The friend's apartment as well. When the bloody conclusion of this one ends, we'll get to it. But there's a note I have there about what I think they're using to save on cleanup.
Oh, okay.
Because if you didn't spot it, it's kind of amazing once you see it. Not that I'm going to tell you to go back and look for it, but there's. We'll get to it.
I think I must have missed it. But then, of course, tits was my next note, because immediately I was like, oh, I didn't even think about this. Going into this, I just thought, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of Cradle of Filth music and gore and blood. I thought that would be it. I forgot that there is this element to the Cradle of Filth thing, which is lots of kind of sex imagery. And I was actually wondering for a second whether we were going to get full frontal, and came close, but we didn't. Not at all. We didn't. But
and this is the special unrated. What's it called? Gorefest version, full uncut 2-hour Gorefest version. Although I cannot find any evidence of there being a shorter version, because if you on those trailers, it says like only available from whatever first, only, and then it's flashing like only for a limited time.
Yeah, cradleoffear.com or whatever.
Yeah. Well, if you go to cradlefear.com, do not go to cradlefear.com. It is now some kind of fucking Chinese website brokery thing or something.
Oh, damn.
I tried to look it up on Whois, but it's just owned, but it just goes to some
spammy
bollocks.
nonsense. Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say, because if it was available, I would say we should 100% buy it.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And we just put this video up there.
Yeah, just
come at me, Danny.
Just come out.
Hold my hand out and won't be able to reach.
Yeah, so it won't surprise you actually on the audio thing. It will not surprise you to know that there are no subtitles on the DVD.
Oh no, that doesn't shock me at all. No.
Because effort.
They didn't know how to do it. They had that trial of DVD Author Pro on Windows 98, and they had to use it. They had to produce it before it came up and put a watermark across the whole thing.
That would explain the lack of like the autoplay flag and the menus being broken, I suppose. I was trying to think though, back when what I had at this point, like 2001, and I swear like Final Cut Pro 3 had just come out, so we're pretty mature in digital video at this point. SD digital video is getting pretty mature and pretty stable.
Don't use the word we there. We as in society are. They are not. They're still using Windows Movie Maker to make this shit. I do wonder what was edited on.
That came with XP like a couple of years later.
XP was 01.
Was it 01?
Yeah.
Do you think they just got the new coolest shit? Like, you'll never guess what I've got. I've got a computer and I can make movies in the computer.
Initial release September 14th, 2000.
Wow, so it would have been the hot new shit.
Windows ME was when it first came out. I love the idea of Alex editing this with his Bumblebee cursor on Windows ME with Windows Movie Maker.
I just wonder what they actually had, because
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean,
although it was cheap, it clearly had some money.
It did,
because they had it had some goodwill. If not, because it's like there is stuff in here that makes me go like they've done well with nothing. Like, it's not good, as we'll continuously point out, but there's part of me that's just like the achievement. There's some achievement in this, because
there is. No, I agree. So, it's not good, but there is. But they finished it. They actually they managed to get it down and produced, which is an achievement in and of itself. I did think it was actually kind of fun to see this era Britain. It's one of the things I liked about the guerrilla style shooting, was that it was like, oh, I remember when Britain looked like that. It doesn't anymore. That's really funny. Like, there's cars on the streets, and the sheer number, and this is where I was joking before, the sheer number of posters. Is this still a thing in London where there's like music posters everywhere? Because it seemed to be, maybe it's just the parts of town they were shooting in, but there's one moment where after she's woken up after her night with, and they deliberately put pills in like they put like a little like Tesco's paracetamol in their glass of their IKEA glass of water before they do the fucking presumably. But she's going down an alley, and she kind of against a wall, and behind her there's just like a poster that says some music show, and there's a date on there, and it had 00 on it. So it's like, oh, okay, that helped me understand when this was shot.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, the one thing that made me laugh about that scene where she's walking down, is it Oxford Street that she's walking
Oxford
down?
Street, yeah.
They've got like, there's the Elephant Man guy, and then there's the dude with like the toothy face and the one eye, which are clearly all very prosthetics. But then the one that's featured almost like most prominently in terms of what feels like, because they all feel like they're fairly far away from her. But then the one who walks past her is just a guy with a weird smile.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any prosthetics involved there. I think it's just like, oh, Alan, you got a weird smile, walk past her.
Yeah, creep her out, man, creep her out. And then the guy's got his little horns under his hat.
Yeah. And and there's the child and the mother. Because what it seems to be implying is that she's now seeing like dead people, essentially.
Well, right? I actually wrote down some lines here. Hang on a minute.
So you're one of us now. Is the guy who lights a cigarette says something like that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
We must look after you, mustn't we?
What did you say?
Now that you're one of us.
Down the street, and then the little girl says something about, you're going to give birth to my brother, and then her mother has the wiggly thing coming out of her ear that's on a bit of string.
Yeah.
So That's all in like that's around the back in like Soho and stuff. Like there actually bizarrely there's a bit, you know, when the vampire guy's at the like crossing and the bus and whatever goes by and he's all like you know, that's just from down from where I used to work.
Oh, is it really?
And what's behind him? Yeah, so back there, the Brewdog, that's Cambridge Circus. The Brewdog that I drink at often is back there, and the Pizza Hut behind him. Like there's so much shit in this that would just get them like
so much shit.
Yeah, crazy legal notices, stuff that's up in the houses and stuff. But we'll come back to it. It's a Pizza Hut. Recently, it was a Shake Shack, and now it's just empty. So
we went down a Google Earth madness trail and went and found that and did Street View errors on it. Yes, absolutely.
But in this era, it was a Pizza Hut. I do not remember it being a Pizza Hut.
Okay, interesting. I could almost smell that Pizza Hut, by the way. I could smell like the greasy crusts. After she's done wandering around the streets, she gets to her friend's house. Friend of indeterminate European origins house.
Yes.
And she's like trying to convince her that something weird's going on. And to try and settle her down, she brings like a bottle of booze and a big old skinny bottle of Diet Coke. And all I thought when I saw that big old skinny bottle of Diet Coke was, have you got enough crisps?
Oh, callback. Wow. Okay.
That's what it made me think of.
Have you got enough crisps?
There was a fun thing I noticed that was like clearly a continuity issue because they've got a couple of different angles of this scene. They're sitting on a couch, talking, and she's all, stressed and she's smoking. Lots of smoking in this film.
Which was the fashion of the time.
Yes. Her cigarette length changes between shots and then stops changing between shots. So
did you see the other camera ducking in from the side on the main view?
No, I missed that.
You see this like lens hood peek in. Oh, no. I think it's the making of guy because it's slightly bluer than the other ones. I'm like, that's an old Sony camera. So I think the making of guy is probably a second angle on that, and sometimes it's yellow and sometimes it's blue depending on the angle. So I think they did a couple of takes, but they had two cameras on some of it.
Didn't quite know how to white balance.
No,
or that white balancing was a thing.
No, well, maybe I don't know.
But then, so they go to sleep, and then she wakes up and she's got like wobbly stomach, right?
Yeah,
and like seductive panties on, and I was like, this is so going down the like hinted lesbianism route, and
weird quasi les out is what I've got written down.
Weird quasi les out, yeah.
So they put it in the damn trailers. It's like, no, put your hand in. Yeah,
it's because she kept on like moving her hand lower so she could feel where the
harder, lower.
Right, and there was one too lower, where clearly they'd swapped in the prosthetic midsection, which looked pretty good.
Yeah,
like it didn't look plastic. It didn't look like the Halloween mask that Danny stomped on earlier on. And there was like one little like bloop, bloop, and kind of like toward the top of her abs, I suppose. But it never happened again. And then she just starts. Oh, there was something before this actually. Before she goes out on her walk around town, she's taking a shower and just starts bleeding from presumably her vagina, is my guess. But then that's never really revisited, and she pukes into the toilet. It looked like she really puked, and I was like, good on you for puking, like actually puking. Because the way that she was retching, I was like, I don't think she's just spitting there. That looked like real puke.
Not like the cop later on who seems to produce a humongous amount of puke.
Yes, yeah. It's just like with the car crash. You're right. It's just puking like it's like Team America levels. Yeah. It really was.
And
this is when the little baby head crab fucker starts popping out.
Yeah. Weird tentacle baby is what I've got written down.
And it looked okay when it popped through like the latex skin. It looked all right, and there was blood and stuff. But then it gets all the way out.
Then it winks.
When it gets all the way out.
Yeah, it just looks like shit. It keeps like sideways winking with its little like head off a doll attached to like a rubbish like latex bean with some tentacles. So when on the walls, when all that blood spurts out and stuff, which this film has a very bad habit of loving the spurt.
It does.
They don't cut in late enough, so you see the spurt after you see the thing happen in spurt. Then it cuts to someone, then you see the spurt and it hit them, and you're just like, it's bad editing. But anyway, all over the walls of that room are these posters that say like what are they? Glory or death?
Death
something
or
like
glory.
That?
I took a
Death
note
or
of that. I was
Glory?
like, is Death or Glory something? Is that like something writer director editor did before?
Starship Troopers.
Starship
If you
Troopers.
look at the bottom of that thing, they're posters for Starship Troopers.
So one of them worked at a cinema. No one took the Starship Troopers posters.
It was a flop, I
with them.
suppose. So.
And so he had a bunch of them, and we were like, well, let's use these, and then we don't have to clean the walls as much. Okay, I like it.
I think
Creative.
that's what it is. Yeah, because I think maybe it's either when the camera swings around or something. There's another like a banner thing for Starship Troopers as well. Like there's a lot of like just shit like that. Because when they're in like the red flat and it's like the Dracula poster or the Hellraiser poster or like like I remember people's flats that were like that.
Yeah,
like these are just the production folks' flats that they said they could use, and it's just like, no, we'll be fine. We won't bother taking down your giant oversized timeout poster of Christina Ricci. That'll be fine. We'll get away with that for some reason, or we'll rip pages out of FHM and put them everywhere or whatever, which is what they seem to do a lot in this.
With the leg guy, they did that definitely. In
leg guy was covered. I noticed that was where the blood spurted though, so I wondered if that was a clean-up thing.
Could have been, yeah.
But yeah, there's so many little things like that just made me think like this. Now you would. It's amazing that no one. Well, and I'm sure no one gave a shit, but the copyright stuff didn't come for this because there's nothing in this film you could have done to fix any of that shit.
No, it's absolutely true. Yeah, like in the background, I saw like some brands, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think you could do that. Really,
Coca-Cola don't want to be in this.
No, of course they don't. Absolutely not. Beecham's and like whoever's in the background of the kitchen because they didn't really stage the kitchen. They don't want to be in this movie. But I suppose maybe they just thought, no one's going to see it.
Maybe that's it. They're just like, fuck it. Anyway, so then we go into our first framing device. Do you want to try and explain the framing device? Because I'm a little bit lost.
Okay, so tortured brown tooth cop is sitting in the police station
with all its weird clicky clacky typewriters for some reason.
Yeah, and like 2 or 3 beige monitors and a big whiteboard and like a random dude just hanging out in like jeans and a t-shirt.
T-shirt guys, yeah.
And like sunglasses. And there was one guy who was just kind of standing there, leaning against the wall with his arms folded. And I'm like, is that what they told you? And you just thought, well, okay, I just can't move because it looked very stiff and like he didn't want to move. So he gets pulled into the office, and we hear this stuff about how, oh, it's him again. And he starts talking about a case that he worked on, and there's all this like needlessly gratuitous expositional dialogue about the 10-year-old girl that he got and he held for 4 days and repeatedly raped and killed her and all this sort of stuff. And then there was something about like him being a hypnotist. He was a stage hypnotist. And maybe this came later on, or was this in this scene? I forget.
I think it was here, but yeah.
Yeah. So that the big bad serial killer who's locked up was a stage hypnotist, and the way that he would get his victims was by hypnotizing them on stage and planting something in their brain that he could activate later on by calling them and then get them to meet him, and then he would do unspeakable things to them. So that's our framing device. But this guy's in prison. So we don't know where this guy, or he's in a loony bin, I suppose, like a mental, like an overarching mental hospital. Yeah, and I took a note of that as well. I'm wondering, did like all of Cradle of Filth go to like Fenham School in Norfolk or something?
Yeah, I don't know. It says Borough of Kettering, which so I assume maybe someone's from Kettering because it's one of the few things that's kind of outside London about it. But I don't quite get why.
I wonder if is it Alex? Is that the guy who did the production? Is that
maybe he's from Kettering or something?
That's what I'm kind of wondering.
Because obviously it was a photoshopped sign on a building with a bit of smoke and bullshit trying to.
Boy,
but
was it photoshopped. Alex Chandon. Yeah, there was some bad Photoshop work. Did you notice that all the place names were Elm something as well?
Yeah. I noticed all of that.
Ugh.
I noticed all your lazy fan service, you prick.
You prick.
Is this where we cut to the mental asylum, or is that later on?
No, that's now. So it's the only, to be honest, actually, it's the only bit of good craft in it is they start talking about this guy Kemper, and then there's a kind of like, but he's locked up or whatever. They say something, and then there's an answer cut. Like it basically sort of like there's visual storytelling where it kind of goes from them talking about him, into him in the asylum, and you're like, wow, that actually flows. You've actually created something that flows there. Well done. Yeah, rather than having a very, very long-winded monologue about how I have to feel up dead women's breasts because of a dead
Right.
child once. So
Yeah, and that's his rationale behind touching the victim, is that he tells the story about that child, and
yeah,
the child was found and then assumed dead, put into a box in the morgue, and then died in the morgue after 10 hours and had broken all the bones in her hands and
Trying
was
to
like
get out or
scratching,
whatever.
trying to get out, and no one heard her screams and stuff. So that's why he has to know that the victim is dead, and that's the rationale behind him squeezing the boob. So we cut over to him, and again, I called it the over art directed padded cell, but clearly a fuck ton of effort has been put into making that room look spooky. And I was like, okay, good on you. Some group of people spent a long time putting those pads up and making them look like they did. Look like what it looked like to me was kind of like Disney kind of part, if it's a spooky ride, you might walk through and see that over to the side. It just looked very, heavily breathed upon in terms of the way it looked.
Yeah.
But it didn't look terrible.
My guess would be, if I had to guess, that was made for something else.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If they did a music video or something that had a budget and they had to, like, okay, we'll do it in an asylum or whatever.
The guy who plays, now what was his name? I wrote it down. The killer's name.
Kemper.
Kemper. The guy who plays Kemper, I'm fairly certain, is in a Cradle of Filth music video, and the only Cradle of Filth that I was really ever exposed to, because they played in heavy rotation around this time on the Kerrang channel. They played the video for Her Ghost in the Fog, and he plays the creepy dude who does the like spoken vocal affected introduction. And it doesn't. I don't think it has this set, because that whole thing it's like snow and like supposed to be a forest, but it's clearly like a tiny studio. But I'm sure that he does that intro, and he's got like yellow eyes. But it's the same kind of guy. If it's not him, then they just have a type that they like to be their creepy old dude because he's got long gray hair and a beard. So, but I'm pretty certain it's the same guy. And I was like, oh, okay, you're that guy from that one music video. I remember that.
Was that one of the ones directed by Alex Chandon?
Good question.
My guess would be that, like, whether it was for them or not, then it was a music video and that set was built for it, and either the FX guys or the production guys had access to it. I just don't see this having the money for it, if I'm brutally honest, but I could be wrong.
Why did I put an E on the end of the director when I googled it? Directore. Yeah. Her Ghost in the Fog spawned a music video, which received heavy rotation on MTV2 and other rock channels, and was directed by Alex Chandon.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. So maybe he's got a little stable.
I would imagine that it wasn't a stable, it was a cell.
It had straw on the ground. You can see how I get confused.
Did that have straw on the ground? I know the sick room had straw on the ground.
Oh, the sick room. Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, the cell didn't. No. The cell just had like screws that could be taken apart easily, and a toilet that wasn't fastened down properly,
which you just have to make look heavy. Apart from that,
yeah,
I think it was heavy, because actually when the asylum guy was trying to lift it, his arm was doing that, like, I'm not quite strong enough for this type thing.
Yeah, it was. So when we after we're kind of led into the scene and we start seeing the guy, there's like the only source of light that he's got. It's like he's in the fucking Sarlacc pit, not the Sarlacc pit, but the like the prison that they get dumped into, and anyway, because he's got like a grate, and that's where the light's coming from above him, and he pulls out, like, from under his pillow, I think. Oh, where does he get it from? It's from under the toilet, isn't it? He gets like the note.
Yeah.
But then where does the shitty arcade token coin come from that they thought would probably, because he cuts his thumb with a screw and puts it on this coin
bull token thing,
yeah.
That comes from under the pillow, I think, is the.
I get the feeling, because they tried to do it later on as well. I get the feeling that they hoped that the fake blood would adhere to that coin better than it did, and it really didn't. It just kind of came back with his thumb when he took his thumb off. But then that gets taken out, like someone drops a fishing line down and pulls it up like 10 stories. We cut away from that. I think that's the end of that scene. It's like he's communicating somehow with the outside world, which you can infer from okay, maybe that's why these people are being killed later on. Why it's 7 years later, I don't know still. But we missed out a part in the expositional scene that leads into this, where he figures out last names, and the last names of the victims are all last names of people who were related to the case from 7 years ago.
I think that's in the next.
Is that the next bit?
Next piece, but yeah. So then we're into the next story, which doesn't really feature Danny Filth as much, actually.
No, it doesn't. The next story is Goth Criminal Girls.
Yeah.
Which we go from Goth Club Girls to Goth Criminal Girls, because of course we do. And I didn't realize that they were criminals until they started breaking into the house. It just seemed like they were friends, because we just come from a pair of friends together out on the night. I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do it with some more people, and this is like his type target. These are his targets. Because we do see him at the start of this little segment when they're coming out of the council flats at Elm Estate. He's standing there, and they don't see him.
He's only in 2 shots, and one of them is blue screen type thing. But then they do walk past him, though, and I think he actually might be there when they walk past him.
Okay.
Because then it cuts to him like licking his lips and stuff, and it's really, really nasty. It's
kind of gross, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't like that bit at all. But they go to this like terraced house.
Yeah.
And they're like trying to pry it open. And then they kind of creep up the stairs, and they find this room, and the room, you can barely see anything in there. But they're like, oh, it's so gross. This room's so gross. And I'm like, it doesn't really look all that different from anywhere else we've been. And then I think they maybe realized that on set. They were like, this doesn't look like different enough, and we can't mess it up enough, because it looked like they just piled some chairs into the middle of the room and old desks or something. Because at one point, one of our crimbos pulls open a drawer, and there's some clothes in there which look perfectly fine, but she's like, oh, it smells so bad. Yeah. And then they're hunting around the room, and there's kind of like creepy kind of noises, which I think it's all this atmospheric stuff. Because I did notice one of the music credits was atmospheric music by, I'm pretty sure it was Alex Chandon. So they find a biscuit tin full of money.
Yeah, when they're on the street, it's very badly re-recorded dialogue, but they mention the tin. Like, he's got all this money in a tin, and he gives, like, whoever, like, my mate, money out of it when she brings him his Meals on Wheels, or whatever. And that, like, it's kind of set up, but it's very awkwardly re-recorded, and it's as bad as most other things in this, where the dialogue, like, you can barely hear it, and even if you do hear it, it doesn't really mean much.
No, so sometimes my fridge will kick on, and I have to, like, pop things up by, like, a notch. It just didn't help with this at all.
No. So, yeah, they're going in to rob this old man's money.
Yes.
For some reason, what did you think the makeup of this house was? Because it seems to be it's a bedsit up 3 floors, but they break into the main door, and then they don't go into any rooms downstairs. They go straight up.
No, they just go straight upstairs. Yeah, absolutely.
If that was explained in the awkward narration with the tin and the Meals on Wheels, I missed it. Because it's like, then they can't find a light, and then she has halfway up, she decides, oh, I've got a lighter. And then they get into the room, which has a sink in it. It looks like a bedsit, but the door's open. I don't really understand. But
no,
when they arrive outside, they're like, oh, no one's home. But my first thought was, it's an old man. He's probably asleep. Which then, fundamentally breaks the back end of the story where he's supposed to be shot.
Right. So, well, because they're reveling in they found their tin of money, and they're looking at it, and it doesn't really look like money, and I can't really tell because it's so low resolution that it might just be pieces of paper, but whatever. And then old man pops up, really bad actor. Old man pops up. He's like
not even old,
painfully thin. No, he's not old, is he? He just looks unhealthy.
Do you think he was another member of Cradle of Filth?
All related, yes. He was either he was a member of the band, or he was like one of their sound guys or something. Okay. I don't know.
Because apparently the entire band of this era is in the film. I just don't know who the fuck they are. So
there was a moment in the club in the previous scene where there's and it's seems to be more heavily featured. I feel like I see him more on the behind the scenes footage than in the actual film. But there's a guy with very long purple dreadlocks kind of hanging over a rail and butt banking his head.
Oh, okay,
and I think he's one of the band members. And I also think that when we get to not the next story but the story after, I think that the guy in the murder room is also a band member Who we see
him with the hammer and
nose.
stuff. I was thinking he was probably one of them.
Yeah.
So okay, good. Okay, we're on the same page on who they probably are. But anyway, he keeps on about his teeth, but he's got teeth.
Oh, you got my teeth. Well, because yes. But that's meant to tie into the fact that at one point
she wore his
she's
teeth.
Come over here.
Yeah.
She turns around and she's got creepy teeth on, and it's supposed to be a scary moment. No, but he looks like the kind of guy who he's a very bad actor, so which made me think he was something to do with the band. But he he also just looks like the kind of guy that you would see in a pub at 11 in the morning, and he just sits there all day. And that's why it looks like he looks. So, but then there's a moment. So a blonde criminal gets attacked from behind, and could very clearly, my teeth, could very clearly overpower him and get him off. But instead, a dark-haired goth criminal, shocking that she's even in the scene, grabs like a candlestick or something or a pipe and just bashes the motherfucker's head in.
Yeah,
just bashes and bashes and bashes.
Bashes and bashes.
And then is clear, and then she's clearly been told oh, you're traumatized by this. You didn't, because then her friend says to her, you didn't have to fucking kill him or something like that. And she's like, ah. But then they swap the money, and it's like a switch, and they go from being like, oh, I was distraught, murder, ooh, money in a tin. It's and the smiling is instantly, and then it cuts to after that happens. It cuts to them. What I thought initially was them recovering. Oh, they've gone home and they were bathing together. And I was like, okay, of course they're bathing together.
They're bathing together backwards, with one of them lying against the taps. Not because that's where you can fit a camera, just because that's what people did. That's what people did in the early 2000s.
People did that in the early 2000s. Yeah. Absolutely, that was like a style, right?
Sit on the plug. It's really nice.
I think Sarah Cox did it on the Girly Show once, and then everyone was doing it.
Sure, why not?
And so that they're bathing together, but then they get out of the bath, clearly not being clean because they're stepping out of bloody water. But that's, it's another thing. It's an aesthetic thing. But they're taking a bath in the old man's bedsit. Why?
I wrote stupid criminals. Because they're trying to get rid of the evidence, right? And they're leaving more. They're going to leave hair and all sorts. It's absolutely...
Yeah, absolutely.
Why they haven't just wiped off their faces and got out of there? I have no idea. Why would it still be there?
Well, and then they found it necessary to leave their clothes there, or maybe they put them in a bag.
They put them in a bag.
They put them in a bag because they threw them on the skip.
The skip in the next street.
But they go and find his clothes because she puts on some nasty pajama bottoms and they don't fit. And she's like, I need a belt. And I'm like, that guy weighs 10 pounds. Of course he wouldn't have baggy pajama bottoms. That makes no sense. So they do they run home? Is that what happens, or does just one of them run home?
She beats the blonde one to death and takes the money.
That's where that happens. Okay, so she beats the blonde one to death, takes the money, goes home, and is all traumatized.
She trips over the floorboard.
She falls down the stairs.
Falls down the stairs, bangs her head against the wall,
and sleeps till morning.
And then wakes up, then leaves, and then throws the clothes in the skip.
Wakes up, goes back upstairs, and sees that the bodies are mysteriously gone.
Yes, of course.
But doesn't really do anything about it, and just kind of leaves.
That's why she runs. Yeah, and she also tells the postman to get the fuck out of my way, else they just completely needless.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely pointless. Yeah. And leaves the door open, so it's okay, so he's clearly a material witness.
Yeah, exactly.
So she gets home and she's acting all traumatized again, and then that flip switches again. That switch flips again, and she sees the money and she's like, yeah. And then we get a wonderful little horror movie reveal moment. Cheers, Sophie.
Cheers, Sophie. Where's my shit?
But is it her and the old man?
Yeah, they're both there. They're both there by the end of it, trying to get her by the door in the thing. And she doesn't. The old man hold her, and by this point she's got a bottle of Bell's out of the cupboard, and she's taking a drink of iced tea out of the Bell's bottle for some reason. And then the other lady smashes the bottle
and stabs it into her eye.
But there's almost no bottle left.
No. It's a little bit of frosted plastic that they've hot glued onto the Bell's cap so that they can use it as a prop to stab into her eye.
And then she's awkwardly, the zombie one is trying to awkwardly hold it from the neck. It's kind of
yes,
it's not good.
It's not good at all. But then we get another of my of course moments. She starts bleeding, and then we tilt down, and of course, blood tits. because it just like she just
It's
gets
just
blood
got to be all over the
her
trailer
cleavage.
shot, right? You need that
Yeah.
blood all over
You need that
those
trailer shot.
tits.
You need that titty trailer shot. Absolutely. And that's basically the end of this cadence, is it not? Oh no, it's not. No, it's not. Sorry. There's we tie back into our main framing device at this point, and we see some abandoned houses with big like fences to keep people out front, and fun-loving criminals are playing. At some
I
point
noticed
around
that.
that time. Yeah. And we go inside and we see Danny Filth walking up to a table, and he's holding a great big tabby cat.
Oh yeah, this is where I wrote cat stabbing.
And and it's a real cat for a minute, and then it turns into a piece of carpet that he shoves a knife into repeatedly. I was like, "Don't kill the cat, Danny." And it's like, and my note for that is, he's evil. Get it? Do you get it? He's evil. And then that's literally all it is. He stabs the cat, empties its blood and entrails onto a plate, and then like awkwardly, I don't know how they did. How did they do that effect where like they approached his mouth and then all of a sudden they went
I think
into his
there's
mouth?
like some weird stop motion shit happening there.
Okay.
I think they've done bits of it and they kept recording and then taken bits of it off. And I think it looked like some sort of
probably
weird,
right,
either that or it was backwards and they were adding.
Well, I thought it might be backwards as well, but then I think the blood was kind of dripping down his chin, and that made me think it wasn't backwards.
Yeah, and then, so what have I written down here? I wrote, this is not as clever as they think.
No. It's,
also, at some point, there was a boom mic in shot, and I wrote after that,
cool.
like crazy.
Like crazy, okay.
But yeah, then we go into more cop stuff and story 3. This was where the film peaked for me, I think, because actually I think that second story was where I was enjoying this the most out of all of it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that because I've got my notes organized into each section of the film, and my last note for this section of the film is, "Oh Jesus, I still have an hour." But there's also a moment there where we go back to the insane asylum, and they've been told to get him or something, and that they're going to move him into isolation.
I've written a Kemper montage, yeah.
And they send the riot cops
the guys in the big duvet suits.
What they looked like to me was black painted life jackets and like Halloween welding masks.
Yeah, welding masks definitely, but they're all like that brute squad, and they're all like,
yeah. That made me laugh.
Yeah, because it's the police are talking about it, and it cuts to this all happening while it's happening under Detective Inspector Brown Teeth talking about it.
Yes, yeah, because there must have been a cop section here because I kind of hate tortured cop as a note. So there must have been. I thought he was just terrible. Okay, so that's the end of the goth criminal girls segment.
So yeah, so he's sending them after this guy or something, and then it cuts to this like nice house in suburban London that looks a lot like where I used to live with Luke. But,
oh really?
Well, we lived in the shitty part, but the houses down the good end look like that. And then you've got the horrible couple who go out driving in their drop top, and I'll let you pick it up from there.
So they go out driving, and again we have what I termed goth wife and receding hair man. We have this
George
couple.
Michael.
George Michael. They're in this car. I think it's an old Porsche. Actually, it's. I'm not entirely sure.
I never bothered to look, but yeah, it would fit.
It's like a classic car that they've clearly got for the film, and they want to use it as much as they possibly can. And they're driving around, but we very soon learn that these are horrible people because she pulls out like a green bag and a straw, and we're meant to think it's cocaine, right?
Yeah.
And so she starts doing the cocaine, and then she starts like giving him the cocaine to do, and he's turning towards her and stuff while he's driving like recklessly through the streets of London. And then we cut between that and what we're probably meant to think is a homeless person on the street with his canistella with 20% extra.
A member of Cradle of Filth on the street with a canistella. Probably
exactly.
Not, actually, he wasn't metal enough, was he?
No, that's true. A member of Cradle of Filth's production crew. Danny Filth's brother on the street, and he like gets harassed by a couple of guys, and they like do they play keep away with his
they grab his can, they toss it between them, and my can or whatever.
And then they kind of give up, and it lands in the middle of the road, And he's like, it's telegraphed from a mile off. You can see he's like stumbling around the middle of the road trying to pick up his canistella with the 20% extra. Terrible couple are coming in their car, and he's not looking at the road. And then all of a sudden he's looking at the road and he runs into him. And they stop, and I couldn't figure out Gothwife's accent, but she seemed to have some kind of Euro accent.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't quite.
Yeah, and she's like, what was the guy's name? I didn't take a note.
I put Nick and question mark, so I didn't get her name. So Nick.
I think it's Anna maybe, because he like yells her name at one point later on.
Calm down now.
Anyway, she's like, Nick, get out and check. And he gets out the car and he checks to see if there's any damage on the car, and there's no damage on the car. And then they just leave the body in the street and drive on.
Did you think they were going to come back for parts of that body later on? Because it seemed weird that it never got mentioned again. I know it was probably just to establish them as horrible people, but I feel like you could just kind of cut straight to the rest of it. Like it didn't.
I know where. Yeah, that is kind of what I was thinking might happen when we get to our reveal. And so they go home
to that night.
Point.
Like they went home, try and have sex, and then he immediately goes to the doctor's as if it's continuous. But I assume the doctor's is later.
That's exact. No, it's not. It's at night. That's exactly what happens.
Can I just point out that when he gets to the doctor's, it's 6:35 then.
Oh, okay. All right, because it feels like it's the same night. All right.
That's what I didn't understand.
Well, I took that note too. I was like, it was like 24-hour doctor. I guess he's rich, was what I said.
That's what I thought. So why wouldn't you go back and get? So he's got one leg, is what we're dancing around.
So this is what happens. That they go home after knocking over the homeless guy, and they're getting sexy on the bed, and of course more tits. And then he's like, she pulls his pants off, and it reveals a stump. We see that he's got a prosthetic leg because he's been walking. We see he's got a prosthetic leg, and she takes it off, and he like awkwardly shifts on top of her, and then he's like,
I can't do it.
No, I can't. I just can't do it. And she's like, I don't care. It's fine. It's okay with me.
No. I can't.
It doesn't matter to me.
It does to me.
And then there's a shot that's like, it just doesn't match at all. They're done with their amorous stuff, and then it like hard cuts to a shot from outside the bedroom, and he's got his hands up on the frame
moodily
of the door. Moodily like almost kind of side lit, and it's a dark hallway in it, and there's like a tracking shot that goes, or is that a trucking shot?
Sure, actually, maybe that's meant to be like later that night and she's asleep, and then it is the next day he goes to the doctor or something. But it's all dark.
Maybe it is.
Anyway.
It's not very well done, but it's all dark. Exactly. Yeah.
That was the only bit of this one where it felt like he wanted to do the montage stuff he managed to do in the first one.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But then he goes to because that there's more montage in this a little bit later on, because he gets to he goes to the doctor, and the conversation he has with Dr. Danny Phil's uncle is that
in the back bedroom.
In the back, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is that if I can find a leg, can you transplant it successfully?
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It's like, I've got money, I can get anything. If I what's it going to take? 100 grand, 200 grand?
200 grand. It's going to cost a lot of money. The guy says. Yeah,
exactly. And that guy was dreadful. I mean, really not good. So we were led to believe that he has this plan to acquire a leg that he's going to replace his missing one with.
He's got a suitcase full of ice, and he's going to get a leg.
I took a note of that as well. He'll be dripping everywhere.
It's also like, I mean,
it's like the motel that they were staying at next door. They went to the ice machine and were just like filled up the case.
Yeah, it's just.
It also looked kind of plasticky.
Well, yeah, none of that really. I mean, we're not whether we're going to accuse this film of logic, but I mean, at what point do you think that would ever work? Like, it's a silly plan.
Because he starts saying that like he knows someone, and he makes a call on his flip phone.
Yep.
And calls this guy, and then we cut to this guy's disgusting apartment
with its horror movie posters, because
it's horror movie posters, and it's what was it? Yeah, there was a Cruelty and the Beast poster.
Was that the one? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's like he's got a sink full of dirty dishes, which you kind of just feel like they were probably there when they arrived to shoot, and they were like, well, let's just use it.
I wrote tea in a pint glass, sure. Because he fishes out that pint glass, doesn't he? He's like, right, he looks at it and like, oh, this is good enough. And then puts a tea bag in it and then starts making tea in the pint glass.
So weird. And we're kind of almost led to believe by some of the dialogue that they've got some kind of criminal history together. They've worked jobs, like it's just a job.
Yeah, because the old crew he talks about. Like,
yeah, because these like establishing shots of this guy in his filthy apartment, the horror movie posters, and the tea in a pint glass are interspersed with our rich guy driving to presumably his place and getting in. He gets in like the lift that I could smell the piss from.
I actually tried to find the building because it says the name of the building. Also, that gun is 100% a child's gun, been spray painted because they've used matte paint. It doesn't look metallic at all. It's super flat.
Well, it doesn't look like it's got any heft to it. At all either. Yeah, no, it looks terrible. And so he's got the gun. He knocks on the door, and the guy's like reticent to let him in. He's almost like they talk through a gap in the door. Maybe there's a chain at one point, and he finally convinces him, let me in. We got this great job, and it's all again like the car crash. It's all very telegraphed, and it's like because he's got his hands in his pocket, and he's like, "Yeah, you got something I need. What have I got that you need? Something you need is something that you've got." What is it that I've got? It takes like 5 lines for them to get to that. And he's like, "You're standing on it." And then he pulls out the gun and shoots him. And then he goes. Then he grabs what looks like a knife that they got from a countrywide store, and he chops his leg off really, really messily.
Yeah,
like it's not a clean cut.
He also starts doing other cuts as well because clearly they can do.
He does. He goes higher and lower on his
higher and lower, and then
it's
like him trying to get through the bone with that same knife, I suppose. For ages.
Yeah, which is like not even a serrated knife, so there's no way you get through bone with that thing.
But it's also, I'm just thinking, like, you probably want more knee than that, bro, because like you're trying to replace your leg here, Like,
yeah, exactly, because his stump isn't super long, so you're right. Yeah,
you need more. Do you think he was a real amputee?
I think he was. Yeah, that doesn't look like a prosthetic.
There was no. Yeah, I was about to say there was no changeover in some of those shots, and it didn't.
Look like it'd been painted out badly in this movie maker in paint.
In paint, yeah.
Import BMP.
Import leg.bmp
with an uppercase file extension.
Yeah.
So then he does the wonderful thing where he puts the leg into the suitcase full of ice, and then all of a sudden it's just attached, and he's home. And
did I write what time he went back to the doctors? Hang on a minute.
Oh, please do.
I did not, but I think it was something like. I think it was all past past, so I think it was like 20 to 9 or 20 to 10 or something, like it was at night. So
it took him like 3.5 hours to do that entire thing.
I suppose so, actually, if we're taking that as the same evening, yeah.
And then the surgery was completely successful overnight.
Even with its giant Dr. Frankenstein sutures, yeah.
And he's on his bed, and the leg reveal is done by there's another woman there.
There's a nurse there who we are led to believe by the wife's thing might be sucking him off.
Right, the wife comes back and she's like, "Who is this?
What the fuck is happening here?
What the fuck is going on?" And then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, look! I got a leg! And this is where we go into our wonderful montage. And it's a healing montage,
park, of course.
And they're frolicking in the park, and he's got like a Chargers t-shirt because they clearly shot it all in, I don't know, an hour, but they brought 5 t-shirts for him to wear so that it looked like multiple different days. And then she says she grabs something off him, and she's like, "You got to run to come get it," and he's just been hobbling around, and yeah, it's not good. So we're done with the montage and everything's great, and they're like, "Well, let's go out and celebrate." And and it's like poetry, it rhymes. We get to a point where they're going out in the car again, and it's similar sort of setup. And they're doing the cocaine again, and there's one brief, tiny little moment. And doesn't Danny Filth shows up at their house, doesn't he? And he's missed them because they're out. Doesn't that happen?
Isn't that right at the start? He's that might be right outside of the house at the start. There are a couple of points actually which they're sort of almost nice little touches. The first one was, and then I got a bit sick of it. But where Danny Filth would appear in things, and they're very, very nasty crossfades. So, like when the girls do coke in the first story, he's in the tray,
Is he?
and then there's a
I
point
missed
where he's
that.
in the like the
He's
background.
in the mirror.
He's in the. Is he in the mirror?
He's in the rear view mirror when she goes.
He's in the rearview mirror.
She's like, "Where's the cocaine?" And
it's in the back,
she's
and he does that. And then,
and he's like, and she's like, "What?" And then
I don't know where she's from, but she's getting increasingly like she's just hung around with a group of old friends.
She's turning to Sofia Vergara a little bit. But so they're driving around and they're doing their drugs, and then all of a sudden, his leg starts having a mind of its own, twisting all over the place. And we get these shots of his feet in the pedal box, down by where the pedals are in the car, and it's twisting around, and he can't step on the brake. And then we get that lovely Knight Rider footage of the sped up through London. Oh my good grief! Yeah, that made me laugh a lot.
The sped up stuff I was perfectly happy with because that's what you do.
It's
the stuff with the car.
The special effects.
The special effects when the car's going too fast and it's kind of dodging through stuff, and it's just like a still of a car like overlaid. Oh my god,
that's amazing.
The tramp going over the car at the start of the story was an overlay, and that looked just about fine. It was perfectly passed. This is the weightless, like the car looks too small.
So yes,
and it's sort of diving through.
Well, it's one angle as well because it's a still image, and like you said, they've grabbed the edges and they're manipulating the skew and the shear so to make it look like it's moving.
I'm not sure they're even doing that much, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but it really does look so overlaid, and it's going through traffic because obviously this is a nice car and they couldn't wreck it. I'm actually amazed they were allowed to do as much to it as they did. With they clearly built some shit on it after it crashed. There's like some plasticky looking smashed glass and fake bent metal. Well, yeah, that's because it's a convertible, so they can just like put that on and be like, we won't hurt it. We're going to put it on with sellotape.
Fake roof and some shards of plastic jammed in the door. It's simple as that. So
exactly.
The skidding through and it's got some sparks coming out of it, and then it slides down that thing and bangs.
It like slides down an alley and then bangs into some like bollards.
Yeah, and then it's the real car's there, and you've got some practical effects again. And she's been flung out, and she might have lost a leg. I couldn't figure out what the hell was supposed to happen. Well, she looks like she was sort of holding herself up on this rail.
Yeah, she's like on. It's one of those railings that's like it could move, but it never does. Right. Like it's closed off a street, but they've left it in. Like you could unpadlock it so that you could get vehicles through if you needed to at some point. But yeah, she's been. We're kind of. It's implied that she's been thrown from the car and she's been killed there because that's when he's screaming and he
screams and it cuts to her and then it cuts to him screaming and it cuts back to her and it cuts back to him screaming and it cuts back to her. It was like fucking Austin Powers. It was just
Airplane
or
something. Yeah.
Just how long it goes on for, and then.
Then we go to the cops, and because we cut away from that, and we just see a pair of Halloween cops. In fact, the best cop uniforms in the whole thing, I think.
And they have a car. They have a police car at one point. It's an older one.
Oh, it's an old Astra. Yeah, you're right.
But they somehow managed to get a police car there. Maybe they just called the fucking police on them. I don't know.
Maybe they did. And so they turn up, and this is where we get the two cops, and they see the one, and they're like remarkably calm for like. Oh yeah, someone's dead on the railings here. So if you could just get down there a little bit, that'd be great.
Until they see him,
and he's like stabbing his own leg. It won't stop, or something like that. Is what he says. And then he just like stabs himself through the chin. I think, doesn't he?
Yeah. That's he's stabbing his leg trying to cut his own leg off. Then the one starts puking endlessly.
Yes.
Then the other one looks in and like, bloody hell. And then that's when he jimmies himself up in the throat.
Again, super low key, the bloody L cop, because it is almost like one of those. Well, I guess he's kind of dead and he's got a leg that's possessed. So sure,
that cop is the only one that knows what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess that's happening
then. I suppose, yeah. And then doesn't Torture Cop show up at this point?
Yeah, and that's when he gets on the radio with his inspector guy, who's like, "No, it's all true. It's like they found a list." He's after your son or whatever.
That's it. Yeah, he's after your son. And I never really figured out who his son was. Is his son the guy in the next story?
I think his son is Mr. Murder Porn. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. So
In-
that's the end of that. Of that. Oh no, that's not quite the end of that because Danny Filth shows up and kills the cops. And did you
Oh, he
notice
does?
how he killed the one cop? Like low key cop who knows everything that's going on. Because Danny Filth has all these adornments. He's got like spikes on his fingers, and he killed him with the horns through the eyes.
Yeah. That was it.
Best.
Yeah, I was about to say, I do remember this, but I can't remember. Wait, actually, is that before Brown Teeth shows up?
I think so. Yes.
And then Brown Teeth is investigating the investigation.
Yes.
And I think that's when you have more cops in a cop car and stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah. And then, that's actually, because there's actually a subtle change over there where that bit is the framing device, then not the actual story, isn't it, I suppose? So that makes a lot of sense.
The most subtle of that it didn't kind of like just like starkly
It actually
go,
dovetailed
okay,
into
we're back
it,
into the frame. It did, yeah.
But then, he's all like, I haven't spoken to him in 2 weeks. He was at work. And then fade through into freesurf.co.
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 Oh, it was .co.
There was a full stop on the end of that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There was, wasn't there?
Because
we're into an absolute gold mine of.
Yeah, I thought you'd enjoy this one.
Oh, I fucking love this bit. This is the bit that I have the most notes for.
Cool. I will let you lead on this. I will just say I found this segment fucking interminable.
Oh, it was so long. It was so long, but there were some bits that I picked up on that really made me chuckle. So we are introduced to next guy who I kind of think might be Torture Brown Tooth Cop's son, and he's at his office. He's at his office, freesurf.co. And it's an internet company, and he's like getting a dressing down from
Mr. Pringle in his dad's suit.
Mr. Pringle in his dad's suit?
Because he's had this like giant double-breasted jacket.
He did, didn't he?
I know he's got the biggest, he had a fucking tree trunk neck, but he just looked like his fucking dad's suit. Mr. Pringle in his dad's suit.
Unfeasibly large suit.
Yeah.
Waggity one. So he's getting a dressing down for like the websites that he's visiting. It's like, oh, this isn't part of your job or whatever. And it's very unclear until later on what his job is. There's a sign that they've put up in the background that I took. It's got a catchphrase on it that says, "Your diligence is our guarantee."
I took a picture of that in case we needed it. Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. Because I was wondering, is this some kind of like very early on ham-fisted internet censorship social commentary attempt? Is that what that is? Because it seems like this is a private company that is policing the internet, is what it kind of feels like.
Oh, I thought that was more about them having to, like a kind of like a cautionary poster type thing. Because it has like in huge fonts, it's like, let us know if you see any of the rest. Then in tiny fonts, it's like bestiality, pedophilia.
Yeah.
Like all these other things. And then at the bottom, it's kind of like, your thing is our whatever with double exclamation.
Your diligence is guaranteed with 2 exclamation marks. Yes, I made note of that. And so, I was just kind of wondering, is this some kind? Maybe I'm just overlaying, modern day stuff, and I'm giving it too much credit. But it felt like some kind of ham-fisted social or like censorship, because I know that Cradle of Filth have been involved in their band history, with a lot of kind of accusations of being too obscene and like we're going to censor you. So I was wondering if it might be a little bit of that slipping into the narrative.
It would be weird if this had subtext at this point. I mean, it could be. I mean, if so, surely the nature of this story goes against the whole point of any subtext.
It very much does. That's
like if there is intentional subtext in that, they don't understand it. They don't understand what they're trying to say.
No, you're right, because they're saying, "Oh, it's all true. What you fear is actually true. It will."
Yeah, exactly. I just took it as an ISP because it
looked like FreeSurf is what it looked like.
Yeah,
even the colors were the same.
There was a kid in a hat at one point. And I was just kind of thinking like, oh, it's just meant to be like tech startup, young,
Ruby
cool
tech,
people.
ISP, okay. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I was reading too much into it.
He had a Free Surf mug at one point, and your colours thing is very right, because I was like, who would have made that mug? I bet it was just a Free Surf mug.
With a bit of a sticker on it or some Tipex.
Yeah, it could have been. Well, it's it's DV. Who gives a fuck? No one's going to see it. Because later on, he needlessly karate chops it against the wall, and it's like,
oh, he does.
And I just love that noise.
That was a good noise.
Carry
on. The boss is done drilling him, giving him a dress down, and we see that he's talking to a woman, who presumably works there, and then we get the needless walk away shot, which is supposed to be like an ass shot, but she's wearing like a skirt that's made out of that very stiff, like shiny fabric. So there's like zero definition there, but he's kind of watching her walk away, like all.
This is after she's seen that he's looking at real death websites,
right? Yeah.
And also,
what are you
after-
looking at?
Yeah.
They have a conversation about it, don't they?
Yeah, because they're going out tonight to a restaurant that is currently for sale if anyone wants to buy it.
Oh, is it really? They're going to go out for an Indian.
Ocean Tandoori or whatever it's called is currently for sale. He calls him stupid fucking Geordie turd arse cunt after he's walked away. Stupid. Because
fucking Geordie turd arse cunt.
It's a note I never said earlier, but I'm not convinced this film was traditionally scripted. I think there was a lot of like giving people the flavor of stuff, like, and then like just say something around.
We'll do like 4 or 5 takes.
Yeah, we'll do it this way. It's just tape, man. We can just shoot loads. And I think like probably only your cop man is the one who's scripted because he wants to get his monologues down, you know. So I think there's a lot of like people saying random things and whatever the fuck comes out of their mouth. So stupid fucking Geordie turd arse cunt is probably one of those.
So that made him laugh on set, and they kept it in. All right, fair. I can relate to that. You know, or hippie fuck off.
Yeah, and when he's looking at real death, he says, "I don't let it affect me." But I noticed he had a blow up Charlie Manson behind his monitor. So.
So once she's gone, he gets back to work. Yeah. He's going to start looking at his dirty sites, and he clicks on a link, and we get a lot of screen footage at this point. He clicks on a link that's like extreme message boards or something like that. Yeah. And then
I've got some of them written down.
I've got all of them written down. So the websites that he has a choice of going to are, first off, they're very classy. The Fetus Eaters, which features placenta eating, home abortions, and fetal fucking.
Nice.
Next up is kinkykadaver.com.
Yeah, I don't want to look it up, but I'm just absolutely perplexed that they would bother putting in a .com on that.
A .com on it, yeah, especially considering the URL they use a little bit later on, which I'll get to. Which if you go to kinkykadaver.com, you can see real teenage necro from KGB files. Which is such a terrible sentence.
Needlessly, KGB files made me pop. Yeah. I like that.
The next up is ape rape, 100% gibbon, 100% sex, genuine AIDS-infected monkeys.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down.
Which, you know, of course, there's clearly room for it. Then we see the sick room, which is where he ends up eventually. And the subtitle of the sick room is just the ultimate in snuff reality. The ultimate in snuff reality, you are the murderer. But then there's one that's below that he skips over, and it's kind of hard to catch. But it's Burn Love, which is full skin grafts. Fuck the flap.
Yes. I did not write that one down, but yes, I was from that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Insert the gif of those cats going like right here.
And so he double clicks on the sick room, which I had to take a note. Stop double clicking. It was double clicking on absolutely everything, and it drove me insane. So he decides on the sick room. This is what he wants to do. He wants the ultimate snuff in reality, and he wants to be the murderer. And he sees like a preview of what's going on, and it's this tiny little room, this tiny little murder room, and a goth girl getting killed up, you know, slashed up or something. And then he's got to have more of this. He's like, this is like the point where he's hooked. And so he makes a note of the URL. Did you happen to take a note of the URL that he made a note of so he could give us
I don't have the specifics, but I know that it did not include a .com or whatever before the slash, and one of the words after the slash was pussy.
www.sickroom101/pussy/user/access.com.
Perfectly cromulent website.
Perfectly cromulent website, absolutely, yeah.
It's also really weird that the webpage repeatedly says thesickroom.com.
Yeah.
Like, but he can never find it.
Yeah, and so that's we get, he leaves work and
heads out on his date with
and they go to what was the name of the tandoori?
I think Ocean Tandoori
Ocean Tandoori. And they have their lovely food. And all I just thought was they're going to go back and get like sexy times, and they're just like probably reeking of garlic and curry.
No, you know what? And I kind of called this. Was like, wait, she's not a big titty, dark haired goth thing. Like this isn't. I don't think there's going to be any nudity in this one.
Correct assumption. In fact, we don't really see. So they go back to his house. It is a house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very oddly laid out place.
Split
again.
level
Split
living room
level,
thing
exactly.
with the
Yeah. And then he's like, "You should go upstairs."
We're gonna have champagne or whatever. Like,
yeah.
These people have never been with anyone ever. Like, it just fucking was rubbish. The band.
It's like it's shot by aliens. It really is. Yeah. And then maybe the prosthetics guys wrote some of this.
I think anyone wrote it. Like I was saying, I think that's
good point. Yeah.
Not traditionally scripted was the best example I could give of it.
It's very, very charitable. Again, so there's a shot of like almost from her perspective. She kind of walks past the camera almost of her up like halfway up the stairs, and he's like looking up moodily. But then what I noticed in the background was a cordless phone answering machine combo with the messages waiting to be played. And I'm like, check your fucking messages.
He has phone messages, I reckon.
And did you see like
behind his head?
I know it drew the eye so badly. And I guess they didn't want to press play on it because the people who owned the house were going to come back later and wouldn't realize they had messages.
Yeah, Alex Chandon's nan or whatever was going to come back and realize.
Yeah, his aunt. Yeah. But then, did you also see the sea of remotes, like black plastic remotes, on that same table? There were like 6 or 7 of them. There were so many remotes. It was great. And then that's kind of the end of the night. And we don't get like any kind of gratuitous scene or anything like that. And he's just like back at work, and there's a whole panic because they haven't seen her in a few days. And Geordie, unfeasibly large suit boss, and some other office worker are talking about it, and some other office worker goes round to her house, and she opens the door, and she's got like dreadful prosthetic bruising face stuff going on, and she says like, "What's he saying about me?" or something, doesn't she?
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. I thought it was like, what are you saying around me? Which is what I didn't really understand.
I think she said, "What's he saying about me?"
Okay.
Which is just like, I mean, it's the subtext in that is just like horribly toxic.
That's what I thought. The implication is that he did this damage, right?
Yes, that is the implication. Yeah.
Because, but otherwise,
we never really kind of get confirmation of that because she kind of disappears after that.
Yeah, and I never really understood what the idea of moving from like. I mean, this is where I think the subtext is ruined because it's like the whole video nasties don't create violent psychopaths thing, but in this case, it kind of has. So you can't really say it doesn't.
Psychopath, yeah. So after that point where they like, do they confront him and they're like, what did you do to her? And he's like, nothing.
He's coming back into work, and Mr. Pringle's like, well, she hasn't been seen in 2 weeks, and he's like, what? What's it got to do with me?
What's it got to do with me?
Yeah, and what? And it's just like, well, you tell me. And he's like, I don't know, stupid fucking Geordie turd ass cunt. I don't know what he says to him. But that's when he goes and gets the extra
constructs the wall.
Puts himself in.
Right, and he's trying to find the website again. He goes to the sick room, or he types in the www.sickroom101/pussy/user/access.com, and it's like and it's a badly mocked up, not found page.
File not found 404.
Yeah. It says host has moved or something like that. Check with the provider or something. It's some bad computer language. But he's trying to find it by typing in random words, one of which is filth, and Satan. And eventually Satan works, and it's like rotating the filth, the words, and he gets back in. Yeah,
it does that a couple of times, because I think that's actually been edited in from later.
I think you're right, yeah.
I think that's supposed to happen when he's at home, because it's... I think because the guy says fuck or something to him, doesn't he? And then he puts fuck in, and fuck seems to work.
Yes, he does.
It's not cool enough, so they've tried to do a little kind of like blah, blah, blah with it,
Right, yeah. And so he gets to the website, but then they yank it's almost like they yank the cord or something. They do yank the cord. His screen goes black, and he's pressing the monitor power button to try and turn his computer back on, which I always love. And this is where like things start going wrong, because you punch out Mr. Pringle, and then walks out and goes home. And then he goes home and he goes to his weird little like split level kitchen table desk office with his big grey laptop that's not plugged into anything.
Yeah, remind me, when did wireless internet become a reasonable thing?
There's no tour, and I was like, I don't think I had wireless internet in the year 2000. I think it was it wasn't long after that, but at this point, we were all still plugging into modems.
For dial-up, pretty much, right? I mean, even broadband wasn't that? Yeah.
No, well, even with broadband, I think we were still plugging into a physical router. So yeah, it wasn't plugged into power. It wasn't plugged into anything. So yeah, and it clearly wasn't wireless capable natively. It should have had a big fat dongle in the side if it
a couple of little antennas like that.
Yeah, a PCM-CIA card with a couple of little antennas on it. Yeah. And I also love the fact that you talked about like the screen overlay stuff, but there was also the thing that there was supposed to be like light from the screen on his face, and it was clearly just like sitting.
Oh yeah, when it's like blinking on and off or whatever, and it was just a. They loved the angle was like lighting in this.
It was so up, yeah, absolutely. But he's trying to find he's trying to find it and the website again. And he finally finds it because he gets filth in the URL, and we get that same footage that we saw at the office.
Yeah, like it's possessed,
like
or
red filter and something on. Yeah, exactly. And then he gets into the website and he starts using the website because where he's been cut off at work was he was typing his credit card details in. Yeah. I saw his card expired in 2001, which made me chuckle. And so he gets into the website and he's in the members area and he's going to have the what's it called again, sick room. He's going to have the sick room experience, and so we get the tiny little like metal effect surrounded video window. Which what resolution is that at? Because it's like rectangular, but like horizontally rectangular, but not quite long enough to be like a modern day phone skinny resolution. But anyway. And there's,
did you notice on the rip-off frame of it was the old QuickTime player is what it was, but did you notice the little gold thing was the token, was the bull token?
I did later on. I didn't notice it at this point, but I did later. Okay. I noticed later on.
I thought that was at least someone remembering what film they were making.
Remember some narrative, some consistent imagery.
Yeah.
But this is where another member of Cradle of Filth shows up in the sick room, right?
Oh, is that the hammer with the right?
Yeah, hammer guy. And because he starts using browser default drop down menus.
Yes.
to select what he wants to be done to the person in the sick room.
You could use a hammer to stroke someone. I know it's
yeah,
or whatever.
And so the first option that he selects is stabbing, and he wants he wants the little, I think, a leg stabbed.
Yeah,
and I think
you could select a body part
and a level and like an aggression level, which the top one, the last one was fatal. And so he's like getting his first taste. But did you notice how much each of these actions cost?
Like the first one was like $1,500. The second one was $2,000.
Correct. Yes. So
the difference between a stabbing and a death was
and death was like a few hundred bucks. Didn't make any sense, but still, he's spending $3,500 on like three clicks.
Yeah. And that's when it cuts him off and it says contact your bank or whatever. Like, which website's gonna.
It doesn't. But then because he does the stabbing for $1,500, and then he does the hammer, which is in the face, and he's like, oh yeah, and then finally he selects a chainsaw
and fatal. Yes,
and we don't get a price on that. I was really annoyed. I wanted to see how much his total was.
I'd forgotten it was 3. Yeah. You're right.
And he selects the chainsaw,
and you just hear it, don't you? And he's all like,
and he's like, oh yeah, and then it cuts off, and he's like, no, ma, and he starts going bonkers, and then we get like a kind of time has passed because the house becomes filthy, and like there's like
letters are piling up somehow.
Letters are like bills, like final notice and stuff, and like there's like food containers and shit all over the place, and then the bailiffs show up.
Yeah, but I wrote that down. Can you just enter a house and say bailiffs, which is all the guy said?
Bailiffs.
No, you have to say much more than just
bailiffs. Bailiffs, and then clear out the place.
Which I feel like that guy was really, really struggling not to say roadies because they just look like the roadies.
That's a very good point. I bet that's what they were.
And so they show up and take away his cordless phone with messages that's probably still on it. And he goes kind of bonkers, and he starts leaving the house, and there's an estate agent putting up a for sale sign outside his house and stuff. So he's clearly, lost his job, and he's in dire straits.
Yeah, still hasn't spoken to his father through any of this, apparently.
Still hasn't spoken to his father. But then he goes and finds an internet cafe. How quaint. And just sits down at a computer and starts using it. Now, if his stuff's being taken away and he's got no money, how the fuck's he paying for the internet cafe?
I just Keita Nomori. I mean,
Keita Nomori. Okay.
At this point, don't look for logic in these things.
No, but it's so we're kind of led to believe before he leaves his house that he's still trying to find the website and he's still getting the same error page. And he's trying the different numbers and different words and stuff. So where does he go to try and find the sick room, Mark?
Was this one of the bad website reproductions?
Yeah,
this is where I think we get into the graphics guys putting jokes in for his mates.
Oof.
So, like, Ask Eddie, was it?
Ask Eddie.
Okay.
Ask Eddie, the friendly search engine, which I'm sure when there's a close-up of, like, because you're right, when it switches between they need the cursor to move so you can see it and the actual cursor being shot on the screen, it's like I can always feel the video switcher being like the big lever being pulled because it changes size and it gets like way clearer and then moves very smoothly and slowly at a consistent speed.
Did you notice when it went to there are no search results from Ask Eddie was in a different font, and then at the end it was like something, the sick room, but whatever screenshot they'd used, they hadn't even put enough space to put the sick room in, and they didn't even attempt to font match anything.
No,
so it just looked like garbage.
And the ask button that he clicks, I swear, is just the Ask Jeeves button.
Oh yeah, I think most of it. I think somewhere you could still see Jeeves actually.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they probably did like file save in Internet Explorer 5 and then tried to piece it back together by loading the. If you could see, if it was clear enough video that you could see the URL bar, it would be a C:// documents.
Oh yeah,
settings,
definitely.
Desktop, new folder, index.html.
Final version.
Yeah, new folder 1.
Brilliant.
And so he goes to Ask Eddie, and he doesn't find anything on Ask Eddie. So then he goes off to Shifty Search, and on both of these, on both of these, they've got faces, and I'm certain that they're faces of people. People. That
they're just. This is where I was like, this is getting away from you, and you're just doing madness jokes for your friends.
Yeah.
And like, just get on with it. You need to wrap this thing up because I think it was still half an hour at this point.
Yes, there really were. And so then he finds a forum where he can post and ask for some information. And I decided to write down his entire forum post.
Oh, go on.
E-space mail me ASAP with any info! ! 4 times. Rich kid at mymail.com.
Mymail.com.
All in uppercase. But his subject, which I think was just the sick room, and the first line of his forum post were in entirely lowercase, and then the last 2 lines were in entirely uppercase. I didn't understand that.
And then it said send to all subject bars or something?
Yeah, which kind of makes me think, is it supposed to be like post to all the forums and they just didn't know the language? They didn't have the language understanding? It's like... So after he's done, he gets kicked out of the internet cafe because it's late.
And sleeps outside.
Sleeps rough outside and comes in.
Did you
in
notice
the morning.
the musical billboard behind him?
No, what did that one say?
That was Craig David.
Craig David. Okay,
that one
perfect.
I clocked.
And so he goes right back in when they open following morning and immediately orders a black coffee with 5 sugars.
Yep, somehow with no money.
Somehow with no
bailiffs had come around and taken
bailiffs. And gets back on and he finds a reply to his post.
Yeah.
And it's got like an address in it, which is on Elm Drive, because do you get it?
Yeah.
This was the worst of the photoshopped signs, I think.
Yeah.
It just looked very, very overlaid, not good at all.
I also have humongous problems with the nature of London geography that's coming up.
Well, I was going to ask you about this because I don't know London very well. And there was a credit in the end that said shot entirely in North London in it. I don't think it actually said in it, but I read it like it said it.
Yeah.
And so he leaves the shop and he's like stumbling through, and then he ends up on what looks kind of like a nature path. It looks like one of those. It was a railway.
Well, he goes on the tube,
the beaching cuts paths. Yeah, he goes on the tube, doesn't he? Yeah,
he goes on the tube. We see him on the tube. Then he comes out of Mill Hill East Station, which is in Finchley.
Okay,
but the message he got said that it was in Harrow, which isn't a million miles away,
Okay.
but also you wouldn't, which might
Wouldn't
explain
get off
why
in Mill Hill.
he's got to drive. Well, it's the other side of the M1, so he's got to cross the M1.
well,
then
maybe
he's
he
got to
couldn't-
walk.
Was he in zone 1 and he could only afford to get out to zone 3 and he
Boilers, maybe that's true. I mean, we don't know how he was paying for the tube at this point. So
there's
but yeah,
no
it just
oyster at
doesn't
this
make-
point, so it's
there's
not
no-
like he could.
very,
yeah.
I don't think there was. So you have to buy an actual travel card or a thing. But anyway,
Or
he comes
ticket,
out Mill Hill
yeah.
East, but then he seems to walk for like most of the day, which is the only bit that actually makes.
confused me as well because he's on this like this nature path, and he's walking along it, and he's kind of stumbling weirdly. Throughout this whole thing, I guess it's meant to be like it's affecting him so badly and shit, But whatever, he's stumbling, and then all of a sudden it doesn't even transition to night. It's just dark all of a sudden, and there's a smoke machine, 2 inches off the side of the lens.
Yeah, and a giant light somewhere behind him that's kind of doing that thing.
Oh, which reminds me, in the car with the previous scene, did you notice that like there was clearly like they'd shoved a light in the dashboard at some point, and you could see it in every shot except for the shot when they're driving. They returned home, where they clearly like, well, we don't need to see your faces in this, but like it was not good. It was very clear. But yeah, so he arrives at this house, like a mysterious house, and there's a Dutch angle shot of it upwards, and it's meant to seem all mysterious. And then he knocks on the door, and what happens?
A little fella answers the door and says, "What do you want? What do you want?"
So he's in this house, and we're led to believe that he is going to get answers from this chap in the house. And
what does he keep saying? Can't say I do. It's like his turn of phrase was like, "Do you know the people? Can't say as I do." But he would also kind of start answering it. It's like, "Have you heard of the sickroom.com?" He's like, the internet thing.
You know about it.
Can't say I do.
So then he says, "Well, you'll find your answers up this spooky corridor," and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I wonder what's going to happen."
If you haven't caught where this is going by this point, then you're really not paying attention. No. But yeah, they're in the really nice. That's where your nan's living room type things happen.
Yeah, very much so. Like I could feel the fireplace almost. Even I could smell it,
and then suddenly it's like, go down here. No, just keep going down. And it's very much meant to be a clever mirroring of what he did to her, I think, earlier.
Yes.
Go up there. So. No, go in that room and stuff.
Yep, I think that's the intention.
But it's not.
But then he goes into a dark room and the lights get switched on and shock horror, he's in the sick room. And the guys with the balaclavas and their like plastic baseball bats come in or whatever it is, and bash him up, and he dead.
That's not a way to run a sustainable sick room business.
Not really, no. Like killing the people who've just spent $3,500 on 2 minutes of entertainment. No, definitely not a sustainable business model. And like not letting them pay by moving around all the time. Yeah, it doesn't. It's just that the nuts and bolts of the sick room don't make sense to me. And
also, your drop downs. When you select something in the first drop down, it should knock out options in the second drop down. You shouldn't be able to tickle someone with a chainsaw. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, but if they want to pay for that, that's on them.
Fine. You want to fondle someone with an axe? Like, these options don't make sense. They don't connect.
No, it doesn't. You want to stroke someone with a chain? Like, no, doesn't make any sense.
What?
So we head back to Fenham
Police
Asylum.
Station. Oh no, police station first.
Police station first.
The body of his son has been found in Bromley. That's in South London. That don't make any fucking sense.
I'm glad you picked up on these things because I would not have.
It's like he's here and he has to go here, but he goes here, and then his body's found here. It's like it's just what? But yeah, so his son's dead. Then he's gonna I'm gonna do what I should have done years ago, and he's got his gun. He's fished out his gun.
Yeah, he pulls his gun out like from under some folders in the bottom drawer of his desk.
Yeah, and he's got 6 bullets in there for some reason. So it's already he just keeps it loaded in the thing.
Yep, totally. It's completely abiding by police procedure. But then I thought he was going to shoot a cop boss.
No, he 1-inch punches his cop boss completely out, doesn't he?
His cop boss, yes, exactly.
Bam!
Yes. I think there was like a little tight space they were in there, and he just didn't have room to get his elbow back and stay in shot. And so
And he's like,
he
enjoy your nap or something, doesn't he say? After
he says like an
a
action
cool
movie
line.
one-liner or something. Yeah. So he heads back off to Fenham Asylum. And
Yeah, he drives on the motorway, so at least maybe they are actually going to Kettering at this
Oh
point.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because there's a lot of motorway driving type shots of probably up the M11, I think.
Isn't
Which
Kettering
would
the
be
Rose
the
of
way
the
to
Shires?
Kettering.
Isn't that where from James Acast is from?
Is it? Oh god.
Yeah.
Okay.
He always says it's from Kettering, the Rose of the Shires.
Okay.
It always makes me laugh. Yeah. So that's when Cop arrives, right? And he arrives in his like Nissan Sunny.
Yeah,
and,
he really does.
And finds the doctor, and like pulls the gun on the doctor and takes her downstairs to his cell.
Yeah.
To Kemper's cell. And it's like, you open it, and then there's the one like orderly guy who's like standing like behind the giant metal door that she opens, that is then like concealing another barred door. She opens that up, and he's standing there, and he's like clearly holding a gun to her back, but the other guy's like, "Oh, okay, so yeah, fine if you say so."
This is Chief Inspector whoever, and he's here to see whatever,
Yeah. And so that's when he starts talking to Kemper for the first time, right?
Yeah, who's got his weird Voldo mask on.
Oh, he's got he's got like a strappy kind of Mankind mask on.
Yeah. It's not even that good, but yeah.
No,
I mean, they put him in it when they take him out of his overwrought art directed cell and into this nondescript stone room.
Like the stone room in the basement that he's been transferred into.
Which I assume is because they can't get blood all over the set that belongs to someone else.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're probably right. And they start having like a showdown about, and this is where like all the supernatural stuff starts cutting into it, where he's talking about my father, which we'd never really talked about his father up until this point.
It's mentioned briefly that like maybe he's an unpowered member of the Crowley lineage.
Oh, he does say something about like Anthony Crowley, doesn't he?
Which I think is meant to be why it makes more sense of what you were saying earlier on about them going after children.
Oh, okay.
Like he's going after children of the people that hurt him, even though most of those people are probably still alive.
Yeah.
But he's going after like legacy stuff, which actually does make a lot of sense when you say it. But I did not think of a single time watching it. So.
Okay. And so what happens in this scene?
He's firing off his gun, and he's going to be like, "Oh, I've got him in the chest. I've got him in the arm. I've pinged one off.
You won't kill me." And like he shoots him in
the eyes or whatever. And then your duvet Halloween mask welders come in,
right?
Because the doctor's all like, "Kevin," or whatever, and then they're like, "No, he's not dead." And they're restraining the cop man. And I think she says something insensitive like, "Get that insane man out of here." And it's just like, you work in an asylum, don't use terms like that, love. Like, it's not right, a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's yeah.
But actually, earlier on, he had called her a cunt. So, not in this scene, but just to his boss, needlessly.
Oh, yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
Don't listen to that cunt.
Yeah.
So they restrain him, and then... and he's like, no, you must let him die or whatever. And he wants to check he's dead, and obviously because that's coming back finally, thankfully. At least they didn't forget to not include that, which was my greatest fear. Was they would include this, not include this cop's defining character trait. And then all hell breaks loose because Danny Filth is one of the welders.
He's one of the welders, and that's how he snuck his way in. And this is where he's revealed, essentially. But I mean, again, we probably called this far earlier on that he is his son, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about that, but it actually makes, when you say about them killing the children and he's his son, rather than just some like being, like it sort of actually sort of feels like there's a bit more story here than you think, but there's really not, folks.
Right. No, there's really not.
But he can appear at will.
Danny Filth pulls out his
powers.
But then he has to sneak in the life jacket welding mask costume.
Yeah, like what
just for the sake of the reveal. I think it's just for the sake of the reveal, right?
Yeah,
because I mean, we all guessed it, but still. But then he pulls out his big old comic giganto blade and starts throwing it around.
What do they call them? The Klingons have
batleth. But
he's got one of them.
Yeah, he's got like a shitty batleth. made out of cardboard, and he starts slicing people's necks with it and shit. And he decapitates someone. Is it?
It's one of the other guards.
Female,
yeah.
One of the other guards. Okay, so he decapitates someone with his batleth. And then there's a side angle of Danny Phil's face, and he gets like a blood splatter in his face. And did you notice that he looked kind of shocked by it?
He did not like
shook
it.
it off quite quickly.
I noticed, yeah.
He's like, and then just kind of kept going.
Yeah,
It's like
back to looking like
continue to going. But yeah, it clearly they should have they could have figured that out. I'm sure.
Yeah, he only did one take of that, and that was the take because he did not want that again.
Yes, he's not doing that again. No, I'm doing that fucking shit again. Yeah,
I'm doing that fucking shit again.
Because I get the feeling he's kind of a mockney cunt a little bit as well. So then he gets thrown up against the wall, and what happens next?
With no opposition, our number one good guy cop pulls his revolver out,
revolver.
Yes,
his 6-shooter revolver.
His 6-shooter revolver that I think he's probably fired at least 4 or 5 shots from. And he fires one more shot and blows Danny Filth's head off above the nose.
Yep. His head explodes from the nose up.
Yep.
And yeah, because that's exactly how revolvers work.
Yeah. Did I write down? I think I... Incredibly weak head. That's what I wrote down.
Incredibly weak
Danny Filth has an incredibly weak head. Or it's primed with explosives.
Right, yeah. It's got like explosive rounds in it or something. And then doesn't he kill Kemper at that point? Or is Kemper already dead and he goes to check and see if that's what happens.
Yeah,
he goes to check. He's got to go squeeze his boob to go and check and see if he's alive or not.
No, because Kemper's still alive at this point because Kemper's like, you killed my son. Oh, my son. Right, I was like, well, you killed his son, you dick. Like, you've been killing everyone's children. Apparently now I realise what this film might be about. But he seems really like cut up that he killed his son, which is so weird.
He does. He seems really bothered by it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think him and actually before the cop pulls the gun, I think him and Danny Filth have a little moment, don't they? Where he's like, "You were the most powerful of us. You will continue the magic or evil or whatever."
I think you're right. Yeah.
They have little moments.
Yes. Yeah. Because they're like, yeah, they do. That's true. But then Kemper gets killed at this point.
Yeah.
And then Danny Filth comes back with half of her head. And it's really well done.
It's like Resident Evil.
I want to know how they did that. I want you to tell me how they might have done that.
The bad CGI tentacles that come out of Danny Filth's head?
No, before that, just making him be able to move around with half a head. Did they like put a green balaclava on his head or? Oh,
no, I don't think so. So he's on a green screen anyway. No, he's not on a green screen, sorry. I'm not going to say he's on a green screen because I don't know if they had one. And also compositing on DV tape was fucking impossible. It was a living nightmare because of the color space. So I think what they've done is they've photoshopped a layer here. And then what they've done is they've effectively done something on the day that would be practical, a line. And then they've put the smushy part in over the top as a single piece. And they've just kept that moving with it. And then the background behind him is fake as fuck.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the rest of it
and then they've just gone through frame by frame and removed the top of his head.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what tracking the stuff would have been then, but yeah, at this point, because they're bringing the CG in, they're probably doing more work to map that out in the equivalent of After Effects or the very early version of After Effects.
Whatever product they're using.
The only part that impressed me when the tentacles start to come out is that the tentacles were in the back of his mouth as well.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So he's all like, with his lip ring. And the tentacles you could see back there. And I was like, that is good attention to detail. That they aren't just coming out of his like brain space. They're coming out of his like spine or something. So they're coming like...
Right, yeah.
So I think that's the bit where they've kind of tried to do... I'm not even going to say like even good low-res CG because like episode 1 was 2 years before this, you know.
True.
But they've done something and they've put the effort in to make it look as good as they can. I think I'll say.
Right.
But yeah, I would think they've done a practical line here, and then I don't think they've matted anything off. They've just gone anything above this line will just garbage, and then they put in a fake layer of like smuts and blood to hide the join between that and Danny Filthface. Would be my guess.
Okay. I was wondering if it was less. My first thought was they put like a green sock on his head and he's just moving around. But
I don't think Danny
maybe
Filth
that's
is wearing a
just too
green
much.
sock. So
Okay, you refuse to.
I wonder if he's
I just
still
have
got
tentacle head.
hair.
Lol. Oh yeah,
Has he? Because
like
the
behind his
hair,
neck and shit.
the hair here would still be attached
Good
to
question.
like the
Or did
ear
they actually
line.
put it up in a man bun?
Yeah, or would they
Did they
even
think
have
about
let
it?
him
Good
done that?
question,
I might have to look at those shots again, actually. But yeah,
Cop starts like laying rounds into him. Like his 6-shooter is just like firing out
magical
bullets,
gun,
like tons
yeah.
of bullets. And this is where I wanted to, and this might be just another Kato and Maria moment, but so then we cut to we see the flash of the gun. We cut to the outside of Phenom Asylum, and we see flashes in the window. And they're in a window that's on like the first or second floor and is like, it just has the eaves right up against it. But we're in a basement inside. We come down the stairs at gunpoint behind a big. So is it just another like, well, whatever?
They had to end the film, so you gotta. How you gonna? It could be. We could be disconnected. Something else could be happening in an upstairs room where a light bulb is going a bit wrong, and the guns are happening in the basement, and we're just putting those together in our brains because that's what we think we understand things to be.
Because we're patent-seeking mammals, we're just
we're just patent-seeking.
That's what we are.
We see a flashing light and we hear a gun and we think they're in an upstairs room.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's probably not the case. And that's the metaphor of the whole film. It's just not what you think.
Yeah, man, it's just not what you think.
It's not what you think. It's
worse.
You know, there's a message is much worse.
That should be the tagline. What is the tagline of this film? Wait a minute. The tagline should be "It's much worse than you think." The tagline is "It's not if they die, it's how."
So, Mark, would you recommend? I know you don't do recommendations, but would you recommend people watch Cradle of Fear?
I'm going to sum it up like this.
I think that's a perfect ending. My last note, by the way, was "What a pile of bollocks."
What a pile of bollocks. I mean, I can't hate it because I laugh.
Marvelous.